Today I'm sharing some tips and tricks for hot foiling. Hello there, Michelle Short here with Terrific Tags with Michelle. I'm here on the Altenew YouTube channel on the first and third Saturday of the month. So if you enjoy my videos, I'd love for you to subscribe. So let's get started. I'm going to be doing hot foiling in two different ways today. I'm starting off with the Geometric Essentials Circles press plates. Yes, you can absolutely hot foil with press plates. They do come out really nicely, but I've got a couple of tips and tricks to share with you. I'm going to be foiling the circles onto some jet black Crafty Necessities cardstock using some foil. I'm using the rose gold satin foil and also the brushed gold satin foil. I'm going to be doing two tags, so one colour for one and one colour for the other one. This is the brushed gold satin foil. This has got more of, as the name suggests, a satin look rather than like a mirror kind of gold look, which I personally do prefer. I actually only want the three lines of the circles in the middle for this, although I could have done either end. I just happened to do the middle for this. So I'm cutting my foil down so that it only covers those lines in the centre. I'm then bringing in my Crafty Necessities jet black cardstock and just removing any kind of little bits of dust or anything that's on the cardstock. Now everyone does tend to foil in slightly different ways. I'm just going to show you my method today. So I'm placing my foil down onto my cardstock shiny side up. I'm then placing the plate down with the design facing down. Now because I've got that foil just in the centre here of that plate, I do just want to make sure that it's lined up really nicely so that I'm only foiling those circled lines in the centre. And then to make sure nothing shifts or anything like that when I run it through my die cutting machine, I do like to kind of hold everything down with some low tack tape. So kind of like if you were creating a sandwich for die cutting, this is how I do my hot foiling. I did just bring it in my tag there just to make sure that there's enough space on the left hand side for when I do my die cutting later. But just going back to the foiling here, I'm sticking everything down so that nothing shifts. I don't get any kind of halo effect or anything like that when I run it through my die cutting machine. I've then got my glimmer hot foil system and I've let it heat up while I've been creating my sandwich. I'm placing my sandwich that I've created with the plate side down onto the platform. I'm then adding a paper shim on top. I find that with this cardstock I do need an extra paper shim, so I've added that on top, and then the two plastic shims that come with the glimmer hot foil system. I've pressed the timer button and you can see that it's flashing green. When it goes solid green, it means that the platform has completely heated up. So I'm just going to let it heat up with those shims on top. Now ordinarily when I'm doing hot foiling, I don't find that I need to have the shims on top while it's heating up. That again is just my preferred preference, but I do find with this cardstock, because it is slightly on the thinner side, it does tend to warp a little bit, so adding the shims on top just prevents that cardstock from warping. So you can see here that the light has turned solid green, so I can remove the platform from the base. But for my personal preference and how I like to do things, I have found that with plates that are specifically designed to be press plates, although you can hot foil with them as well, I find that I like to heat up the plates for double the length of time. So I've popped the platform back into the base and waited for the top green light to go off, and then I've pressed the timer button again. Now again, it's flashing while it's heating up, so I can bring in my die cutting machine here to get that ready to go. And once that light turns solid green, I can remove the platform from the base. Now, like I say, this is just how I personally do like to do hot foiling with press plates, but you might find that you only need to heat it up once, or you may find that you need less pressure or more pressure. everyone's machines are slightly different, and that is quite frustrating in a way if you're trying to learn how to do it. But the best thing I've found is just to experiment. If you don't get a really nice impression, you may need more pressure, but you also may just need to heat up your plates for a little bit longer, and that's what I've found works best for me. So I can remove those shims, and then I can carefully remove that cardstock and my sandwich here from the plate. Now, unfortunately, I didn't realise that I wasn't recording while I was removing the plate, but you'll see how I do it on the next lot of foiling. I did get a little tiny bit of overfoiling there just at the bottom of this plate. I don't actually need this part of the design. I'm going to cut it off anyway. But what I like to do with overfoiling is just try and remove it with a craft knife. I find that if I just kind of glide the craft knife over the foil, it removes it really nicely and I don't damage the cardstock. But you can use a mono sand eraser. This is a little bit more abrasive and I do find that it can scratch the cardstock a little bit. So I do tend to prefer the method of the craft knife. So for my next lot of foiling, I'm bringing in the Essential Sentiments hot foil plate, and you can see that this plate has got the gold look. This means that it's a hot foiling plate and is designed for hot foiling. You can't press with this plate, whereas obviously with the press plates you can press with them and you can hot foil with them. I really like these sentiments where they're all together, because if you want to have loads of sentiments in one go, it's really quick and easy just to foil them in one go and then die cut them in one go. But I know that I'm not going to end up using all of these sentiments, even if I save some for other projects. So I'm just kind of foiling the top half of this plate. I'm doing the exact same thing that I did for the other one. I've got my foil shiny side up onto my jet black cardstock, and then I've got my plate facing downwards and I'm holding it down with some low tack tape. I can then place that down onto my platform and press the timer button. And I didn't realise that I forgot to add the shims on top to prevent that cardstock from warping. So you can see as time is going on that the edges of the cardstock are kind of lifting up a little bit. So I remembered at this point to add the shims back on top. So I've got that paper one and then the two plastic ones that come with the machine. So I'm placing them down on top and then letting that timer button go to solid green. But because I didn't add the shims on early enough, I am just going to leave it a little bit extra time. And then once I'm happy, I can remove that from the base and then run the platform through my die cutting machine. And you can see at this point, I do just heat it up once. I do find with the hot foil plates that I do just need to heat them up once. But if you need to for your machine, definitely heat them up twice. Sometimes that extra heat does just help the kind of impression of that foil. So I can remove that really carefully. This plate is hot at this point, and this is the downside of using this method with the tape, because you do just want to be careful not to kind of touch that plate too much. It can get very, very hot, but like I say, it's just my preferred preference, and I do find that it works really nicely for me. So I'm just being careful here to lift up that tape. Because that tape is heated up, it does tend to come up really nicely. So I can remove that plate and pop it down onto my silicone mat, because that plate is hot, like I say, and I want to make sure that I don't get any kind of heat on my mat here. So I just kind of run over that with my fingers, and it does tend to remove any kind of extra little bit of overfoiling, but you can see that I've got a little bit above that hello there. And although I don't need that sentiment for my tags today, because I'm die cutting these all out, I want to make sure that they're nice so that I can keep those for future projects. So I'm just going in with my craft knife again, just gently removing that excess foil. And then you can see here that because I used the press plate in particular, that you can see that I've got those extra lines on either side of the foiling where it's embossed to that plate. I think that that's quite a cool look actually, and it's a great way that you can use these plates in a completely different way and just emboss with them or deboss with them. I think it's a really pretty look, but it's quite nice on this tag to have the two kind of extra looks here. I didn't want the whole thing foiled just because this tag is quite tiny, and so I didn't want it to kind of fill up the whole area of the tag. I just quite liked having it on the left hand side there. So I have die cut that out with one of the Terrific Tags dies, and now I can bring in the coordinating die for the sentiments. So this is the Essential Sentiments die. And it's great that this does come with a die, because you can see that I did accidentally kind of shift my plate a little bit as I was sticking it down. So it's not quite straight on the cardstock, but usually the method that I use does mean that I can get sentiments really nice and straight and in the exact place that I want it to on a card panel, for example. So I've got all of these little sentiments that I can keep for future projects, and then I'm just going to cut down the thank you one. So it's a little bit long for my design, so I'm just going to use my mini guillotine here, excuse me, and just cut either edge off. And then I did the exact same process again with the jet black cardstock and the geometric press plate, and then also the Essentials Sentiment foil plate, but this time using the rose gold satin foil. I'm now taking the Zero Waste Chocolate Flowers die. This is one of my favourites for foliage. I'm going to cut it from some vellum. And I know that I only actually need for my project the two kind of fern pieces on either side, but I thought that I would cut the entire panel with the vellum because I do often add little kind of flowers and things like that. I sometimes need just something little extra for projects, and it's quite nice having them cut from vellum. When I do cut from vellum, I do like to add a piece of printer paper at the bottom of my sandwich here, so that I don't get any cutting marks from the plates onto the vellum. Vellum being translucent is going to show up any little kind of cuts or anything like that from the cutting plates, so I find that that works quite nicely. So one of the pieces here did get stuck in the die, so I'm just using my perfect picker here just to pop that out. So I've got that first fern piece here, really pretty. I love it cut from the vellum. And then I'm just trying to figure out here where the other piece ended up, and it has stuck into the vellum piece here, like the negative, so I can just pop that out. The one thing to mention, if you are cutting vellum on top of the paper, they do tend to stick to each other quite easily, so you just want to make sure to remove that printer paper from the vellum. I'm then taking the gilded glitter cardstock set, and I'm just figuring out here which colours are going to match my foiling the best. So I'm using the kind of topaz colour here for the rose gold tag. I think that they are a really lovely match together. And then I did struggle a little bit with the brushed gold one. There is a colour in the set called brush gold, which is the colour that I ended up using, but it isn't a complete perfect match. The cardstock is a little bit of a lighter shade than the foiling, but it does still work really nicely. So I wasn't sure at this point which one to go for, but I did end up going for the brushed gold one. I don't want to waste any of this cardstock, so I'm just cutting it down so that I can fit it behind the two kind of leaf pieces that I want to cut. And luckily there are two of these pieces on this die, one kind of facing one direction and one facing the other direction, kind of like the fern pieces, so I can just cut the pieces down and pop those behind the openings of the die. I can then flip that over, just making sure that they're going to line up nicely. I didn't stick these down, but you could absolutely just add a little bit of low tack tape onto them so that they stick in the exact right place. And then I ran that through my die cutting machine. So I can just flip those pieces over, and then I can pop out those pieces, and I just think they look really pretty cut from that glitter cardstock. And this glitter cardstock does die cut really nicely, and what I love in particular is that the glitter does not shed from this cardstock, so you don't have to worry about any of the mess. I want to adhere the fern piece down onto my tag flat, but I don't want to have any adhesive showing. So I'm taking some small pieces of instant dimension foam tape, adding that towards the bottom leaves of the glitter cardstock piece. I can remove the backings with some tweezers, and then I can adhere that down onto the vellum piece because I know that I want to overlap them, and this is a really great way to adhere these down without any adhesive showing through that vellum. So I'm just sticking this one down here onto the vellum piece. I don't want to do it onto my actual tag because I do want to then flip that over to add a little bit more adhesive onto it. But before I stick anything down, I've cut another tag from the jet black cardstock, and I'm going to adhere that onto the back of the foiled one. Like I said, this card is a little bit thinner than some other cardstocks, and so I want to make sure that I give that the stability it needs, but also it means that it looks really nice and neat on the back of the tag in case I want to write a personal message. And I would probably do that with either a metallic pen or a white gel pen. I can now add some more instant dimension foam tape onto the top of the other pieces of the leaves that I didn't add to before. And now I'm adding a little bit of liquid glue onto the backs of the other ones where that vellum is overlapping them. And I didn't realise at this point that I hadn't removed the backings off of the foam tape onto the top two leaves. But it doesn't matter, I managed to sort it out. But I'm just figuring out here the placement of that. I wanted to have it overlapping the side of the tag a little bit. I just really like that look. And now I realised at this point that I didn't remove those backings, but I'm just being really careful here just to remove them, and the tweezers are great for this purpose. I don't want to lift them back too much because I don't want to damage that cardstock. So just press those down, and then I can do the exact same thing for the rose gold one. And this time I did remember to remove the backings off of that foam tape before I adhered it down onto the tag. So adding a little bit more of that liquid glue there. Just being careful not to add it where it might overlap. You can see here that I did get a little bit extra there, so I just removed that with my finger, and I don't think you can see that, thankfully. So just placing that down onto the tag, and now I've got my sentiments. I do just want to add a little bit of foam tape where it's overlapping the side of the tag, where it's not overlapping the leaves. And then I can add some tape runner onto the rest of it, and then I can press that down. And I did realise at this point that I did want a little bit more foam tape on the left hand side, so I've just cut a little piece of that, and then I can pop that underneath just so that everything sticks down really nicely. And then I can do the same thing there for the gold one. I have added some twine through the top of the tags and tied that in a bow. And now for some added embellishment, I'm taking some black enamel dots and using the perfect picker to help me pick them up and place them down onto the tags. I did think it would be quite nice to add some embellishments in either gold or rose gold, but I didn't have anything that matched the colour perfectly, and black tends to go with everything, and like I say, it just adds a little bit extra onto these tags. And so that's the tags finished for today. I really love how that foiling is kind of just popping from the background, especially against the black base. And then you've got the glitter cardstock that kind of matches the foiling, and then also those coordinating sentiments as well. Links to the products that I used will be listed in the description bar on YouTube and also over on the Altenew blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Hey there, Lydia here. I really do hope that you've just enjoyed the video. If so, please subscribe to the Altenew YouTube channel. Also, turn on the notification bell so you can get your daily dose of crafty techniques and tutorials just like this. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.